Hey Book Dragons, I'm so glad you joined me today. I've got a book review for you today. Finally, right? I finally got a book review. It's been a while since I've done one. I recently finished The Murder of Roger Ackroyd by Agatha Christie. And I'm ready to give you a book review on that book. This was a buddy read that I did with my friend Mona Lisa over at Mona Lisa Reads. You've heard me talk about her before and how we're kind of working our way through the Poirot library by Agatha Christie. And so this was the next book in the order of the books as they were released. And it's very interesting because it kind of doesn't feel like it was a book written as early as it was. And so we'll kind of get into that. But just to give you a little bit about what the book is about, obviously it's a murder mystery. Somebody dies. No spoiler there. And you might guess from the title of the book that somebody named Roger Ackroyd dies. So that's not a spoiler because it's right there in the title, guys. Yes, Roger Ackroyd is murdered at some point in the story. I won't tell you where or how or who does it. I won't give you any of those spoilers. But it's a very different feel for a Poirot book because in the previous books, if you've watched my reviews or if you're familiar with the Poirot books, you usually see a friend of his called Arthur Hastings, and they are kind of like the Sherlock and Watson duo of sorts. So in this book, he's lamenting the fact that Arthur Hastings is no longer with him. He's gone off and started living his own life apart from Poirot, and Poirot has embarked on his retirement, which is very interesting. He's picked this little out-of-the-way town, like a country village of sorts, and he's just kind of kept off to himself. He even lets people mispronounce his name because he wants to stay under the radar. So he's going to do whatever he takes to stay under the radar. He doesn't want people really necessarily knowing who he is. And so at one point in the story, somebody calls him Perrot, and that just, he allows it. You know, that's just kind of how he's known. And there's only a couple of people in the town that actually knows who he is, but they've kind of respected him and left him alone as he wants to be left. Then comes the murder of Roger Ackroyd, right? And so the best person to solve that case is, of course, the impeccable Hercule Poirot. It's a great, fun little story, but it's so different because it almost feels like this would be Hercule Poirot's last case. And it's not, but it feels that way because, you know, he's gone here to retire and he's no longer with Hastings or anything like that. And so the common story progression of Poirot's years are not there. And I was talking with my friend Mona Lisa, and she's read Agatha Christie's autobiography, and she had kind of clued me into the fact that at this point, Agatha Christie wasn't really sure she was going to continue writing anything about Hercule Poirot. She thought that he was just going to be a short-lived character, and she had kind of planned not to continue to write anything about him. And so this particular story was almost kind of like a leave-taking of sorts for that character. And then, of course, you know, he's still really popular, and the publishers want her to write more Poirot, and she comes up with more stories for Poirot. And I haven't gone further than this book yet to see what the other stories are like, so I don't know if she then goes back in time to tell more of those stories earlier before this book. What you doing, honey? Aw. You trying to get away and get into my drink? That might not be a good thing. Yeah. So it's just one of those weird moments that it feels like this could be saying goodbye to the character, but you know that she's written more books since then, so I don't know what to expect going forward. But be that as it may, this had all the standard Agatha Christie signatures to it. You've got the person being murdered, and you've got all the possible suspects, which is pretty much everyone in the town, right, that could possibly have done it. And everybody has different motives for wanting Roger Ackroyd dead and everything, and so it's up to Hercule Poirot to sort everything out. And as you go through the story, you're going to think it's this person, and maybe it's this person, and oh, this person is a good possibility. But by the end of the book, you get to the end of the book, and you're just like, I was completely wrong. Now, I will say, as I got toward the end of the book, and certain things happened, I started to wonder if it was actually someone that I didn't even remotely think about. But then I'm like, no, that wouldn't really make sense. That wouldn't fit the way the story was written. And then by the time I got to the end and he was about to reveal everything, and I realized what he was doing, and I'm like, oh, you gotta be kidding me, really? Like, this was a boulder drop, guys. This absolutely floored me. I had no idea that when I started the book and got to the end of it, that the person who committed the murder would be who it was. I had no idea. She kept me guessing almost the entire book, which is normal for Agatha Christie books, right? It's normal for Poirot books, and I just absolutely loved it. I love being proven wrong. And I know that sounds weird because you want to think that you're gifted enough to solve these mysteries, but you're really not. At least I'm not. I was not able to solve this one until I got some hints at the very end, and I'm like, oh, I see where this is going. And I was just absolutely shocked. It's a very shocking ending. And I know this review does not fit my typical, basics of the story and characters and things like that. All of those are good, that the characters were excellently written. Hercule Poirot is always excellently written himself. The story and the plot was just fantastic. But it's hard to do a review on a book like this because these are serial stories. You're getting one character who's solving different mysteries over the course of his life. And so I can't really make it fit my typical review, but all that to say, I just really, really enjoyed this book. I have heard this hailed as one of the best Poirot novels, and it really is. I mean, it's one of the best that I have read, and I just absolutely adored it. And if you stick around to the end, like in the afterword and the appendices, you're getting a letter written to editors in the United States from Hercule Poirot himself. So it's kind of like, it's kind of meta in a way, and I thought that was a really cool addition. Normally I don't read afterwards for books unless I'm really intrigued to find out what the author has to say about this. But it wasn't Agatha Christie talking at all. It was Poirot, and I thought that was super cool. So all in all, this is a fantastic book. If you're going to pick one Agatha Christie book to read, I definitely think this would be a good place to start. There's other great Poirot books as well. Murder on the Orient Express is probably the best. Death on the Nile was great too. They're just all so good. And I hope you'll check out The Murder of Roger Ackroyd if you love a good, cozy mystery and just a really simple, fun whodunit. And it's a short book too, under 300 pages. You're going to love this book. I really think you are. So I hope you check it out. And if you like this and you've never read Agatha Christie before, you should definitely check out some of her other books. I highly recommend the Tommy and Tuppence series. There's 5 books in that series. But everything that I've read of hers is so good. So definitely check out Agatha Christie if you have not. And if you're a huge fan of Agatha Christie like I am, let me know in the comments. We can gush together about all things Agatha Christie. And yeah, just a really fun book. So I hope you've enjoyed this review. I hope it's been meaningful. And until next time, guys, make sure you read more books. I'll talk with you soon. And it's time to give a huge shout out to all of my patrons. I really appreciate everything you do to support my channel.